Hello, my name is Avery Taylor, and today I'll be ranking the top 50 MLB prospects for the upcoming 2025 MLB draft. This is in no way meant to be a mock draft or an order of which they will be selected. It is just simply a ranking of the players available for the draft. Hope you guys enjoy it. I don't want to waste any of your time. This will be a longer video, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's go ahead and get into it. Before we talk about the players who actually made the top 50, let's talk about the players who just missed out. At number 60, I have Dax Kilby. 59 was Zach Root, 58 was Cameron Appenzeller, 57 was Jaden Foskey, 56 was Patrick Forbes, 55 was Charles Davelin, 54 was Angel Cervantes, 53 was Johnny Slowinski, 52 was Nick Becker, and 51 was Mitch Voigt. These players were all very reputable in their own right, but just missed out on my top 50. Starting at number 50, I had the right-hander from Tennessee, Marcus Phillips, who is a menacing prospect on the mound, standing at 6'4", 246, has an elite fastball changeup slider combination. He just really struggles to control it from his weird, kind of funky arm action he has going on. And if he can't continue to get the walks under control, you can definitely see him moving to the pin and just being an elite reliever. But he has so much upside with that high fastball velocity, I had to make sure he made the list. Part of what makes rankings so fun is the fact that you have all these different types of players that you have to try to put on the same list and in a semi-organized order. For this example, I have Aaron Watson going at number 49. He's a much different pitcher to Phillips because he's a lot more higher floor, lower ceiling type prospect. He has a great feel for pitching with command over his 3 pitches of his fastball, slider, changeup. His fastball is a plus pitch at a 55 grade, and he has a little bit projectability to him as well. Stands at 6'5", 205 pounds. There is reason to believe he could add some more kick to that velocity. It's just a matter of how he, develops over time. He is committed to Virginia, so it will be interesting to see how he plays that out, whether he signs or decides to go to college. However, whenever you're talking about projectability, Alec Blair has some of the best whenever it comes to upside in this class. He has some of the best raw power you can get into, especially considering he's just 18 years old. He stands at 6'6", 195 pounds. So you can imagine those long levers will be easy for him to get into some power, but he runs really well for his size and even can play some center. Probably will get moved to the corner to make better use of his arm, and as he continues to grow into his body, he'll probably lose a step, but as an exciting player that can get into some raw power, definitely an excellent piece here at number 48. At number 47, I have Tate Southine, a high school shortstop prospect from Nevada. He is pretty small in stature, standing at just 5'11", 180 pounds, but don't let that fool you. He does have a little bit of pop to get into at a 50 grade. 50 grade hit tool, his calling card is his speed at a 60 grade, which a lot of scouts believe will push him in the center field to make better use of. He is solid at shortstop, but he definitely could make better use of his assets in center field and be a really plus center fielder. He has a decent arm, decent fielding. He's just a really well-rounded player, especially for somebody just at 18 years old. One of the biggest what-if stories is AJ Russell, a menacing right-hander out of Tennessee. He has one of the best fastball slider combinations in this entire draft with a 70 grade fastball, 60 grade slider. Also has pretty good control over those pitches as well. It's really just a repertoire question and a workload question with him. He had that injury to his UCL in college, which forced him to miss a lot of his sophomore and junior seasons. Came back, looked still pretty decent, but you never know how he's going to respond to a full season workload. Obviously, if he can show he can get back to full prime form, if he can continue to develop, get that repertoire up to speed, then he is just going to be a frontline starter type of potential. At his worst, he's a dominant closer. Sounds pretty good here at 46. Another tall, menacing right-hander that's going to need to improve some of his repertoire questions is going to be Landon Harmon, a right-hander out of Mississippi. Currently committed to Mississippi State, the 6'5" right-hander has one of the premier fastball slider combinations of this class. Again, has a changeup that flashes sometimes, but still needs some work. Decent control. Overall, it has really high upside, has frontline starter potential, but just needs to round out some of his repertoire and needs to show a full seasonal workload. At number 44, we have another really tall right-hander who throws hard with a great slider, and it's Riley Quick, the right-hander out of Alabama. He has a great fastball, great slider, has a more developed changeup than those previously, has spotty control at best because his stuff is so good it's actually pretty hard for him to harness. He is another guy that had Tommy John surgery, came back this year, looked pretty decent, stayed mostly healthy throughout the year. He is an interesting candidate based off where teams see that medical, But here at 44, I think it's a pretty good case for a guy that needs some more polish before he can really take up to his ceiling. At number 43, we're going to switch it back to the high school ranks with Matthew Fisher, a right-handed pitcher out of Indiana. He is a 6'3", 200-pound righty who has a pretty good arsenal already. 55 grade on the fastball, 55 on the curveball, 55 on the slider, 50 grade changeup with a 50 control and 50 overall. He just does a lot of things well. He's really athletic. He was a former star quarterback as well. He does a lot of things well off the mound. We'd love to see that fastball velocity get up more in the velo department. He already gets pretty good spin rate on that. And I think with some added weight on as he gets a little bit older, he could definitely see an uptick in that velocity that'll help him raise his ceiling quite a bit. At number 42, we have the corner outfield / first baseman from the South Carolina Gamecocks in Ethan Petri, who just absolutely demolishes baseballs. He gets that 60 grade power honest. He demolishes everything that he can. Does get a little happy with the swing and misses sometimes, but he's just going to mash baseballs. Defensively, you don't want to necessarily shove him in the corners because he's not the most athletic guy out there. Doesn't run the best, doesn't field the best. He does have a great arm for right field, but he needs to move better, and realistically, he's probably going to get put at first base just because of that poor defense moving forward, but you're not getting this guy based off his defense. He's here to mash, and at 42, he earned his spot. At number 41, we have Anthony Ianson, a right-handed pitcher who finished the season at LSU. First two was at UC San Diego. He kind of just held his draft stock across the year. At the beginning of the year, he didn't necessarily show the flashes that we had previously seen. Final 2 months of the season, he really came on. His fastball really kind of lacks some shape, isn't the hardest thrown fastball in the world at 93 to 97. That slider had become his best pitch across the time at LSU, and he's going to have to rely on that off-speed stuff until he can fix that fastball shape moving forward. If he can fix that and kind of get the rest of his repertoire down, he will be a middle of the rotation sort of starter. If not, he can be a relief pitcher that relies on that off-speed stuff pretty heavily. At number 40, we have Alex Lodis, the star shortstop from the Florida State Seminoles. His grades aren't necessarily anything spectacular. He's pretty well-rounded across the board. 50s across the board except for his fielding at 45. He's definitely not the flashiest shortstop in the world, but he does make enough plays and is relatively game smart enough to stick at the position. He is an absolute performer at Florida State. You cannot take that away from him, and he has a pretty well-rounded offensive game, all things considered. So we are going to give him props here at number 40. At number 39, I have Andrew Fisher, the first base prospect from the University of Tennessee. He will be a first base prospect just because he doesn't really have the movement or the speed to really play third base on a very high level, which is unfortunate because he actually does have a pretty good arm, which is kind of going to go to waste at first. But we're not talking about Andrew Fisher for the fielding. We're talking about for the bat. 50 grade hit tool, 60 grade pop. Whoever gets this guy is going to get a masher and is going to get him to the major leagues pretty quickly. I just hold him a little bit lower than some of the other scouting teams just because I don't know how much value he's going to get from first base, and I don't know that he'll necessarily be a premier first baseman. If I had to think of the polar opposite player to Andrew Fisher in this class, it's probably Cam Canarella, who has a 55 grade hit tool but has no pop at 40, probably could be even lower. Run speeds at about a 60 grade. Arm is very weak after having some injuries to it. Fielding is incredible at center field, but overall it's very polar opposite to Andrew Fisher here at number 38. He just provides a lot of value on the defensive side and has a plus hit tool that's always valuable in a center fielder. At number 37, I have a right-handed pitcher, JB Middleton, out of the University of Southern Mississippi. It's really easy to fall in love with this stuff. 60 grade fastball, 60 grade slider, 55 grade changeup, 50 grade control. Overall, he's a 50 grade prospect. He tops out at about 97 on the mound, which also has run and sink on it. He has a pretty good slider that's even tougher to hit. He just shows a lot of plus tools in the bag. The one really concern you'd have with him is he's only 6 foot tall, only weighs 178 pounds, so he is on the lighter side to be throwing that hard, and you really do question if he's going to be a starter, if he's going to, if injuries are going to build up against him over the course of his career with the smaller stature. At number 36, we have one of the biggest discrepancies between myself and MLB Pipeline. It's Brandon Compton, an outfielder from Arizona State who absolutely mashes the baseball. We showed that all of his time at Arizona State, all of that time in the Cape Cod League, even went to the MLB Combine and absolutely dominated there. You see that in his hit grades, 50 grade hit, 55 power. I'd love to see him try his hand at center field. I know he's not the best fielder in the world, but if he can get to even an average level center fielder, because he actually does have pretty good run times, if he can get to center field and be okay there, it could be an absolute massive change for him in his career, because if he's limited to left field, it does hurt his value a little bit, but Brandon Compton, you're talking about the bat either way. At number 35, I have Kaden Boddine, the catcher from Coastal Carolina. What he does really well is he is going to pepper the baseball everywhere. He has a 60 grade hit tool, and for good reason. Absolutely destroyed the Cape Cod League. Power pretty much non-existent at 40 grade. Running even further in the dumps. He is a pretty good catcher all around. His arm is a little fringy, but other than that, he is pretty good at framing, has a good quick release. He's just pretty solid back there behind the dish. Plus a good hit tool that's immensely valuable as a catcher to be plus on the offensive side in pretty much any category and be a good catcher. So he does have some definitely good qualities. I just like to see that power come along a little bit more. At number 34, we have Quinton Young, the nephew of Dimitri and Delman Young, and he is immensely powerful. Unlike Boddine, he can get to his power at a 60 grade. It's the hit tool that we're worried about with him at just a 45 grade. He is a third base / outfield prospect. I'd love to see him move to right field, make better use of that arm, which is at a 65 grade. I'd love to see him get used to that even more. He has a ton of projection. Obviously, he's ginormous at 6'6", 225, and is a nice right-handed stroke. He does sometimes swing and miss. You're going to have that sometimes with some of these bigger, younger guys, but he absolutely demolishes baseballs. At number 33, we have Mason Neville, who also has no problem getting to that pop. He tied for the NCAA lead last year in homers, and he rightfully deserved his 60 grade power. What he does a bit better than Young is he actually plays center field. He's going to do it consistently throughout his career. Runs at a 55 grade, arm at a 55 grade, fielding overall at 50. The hit tool again is in question at 45, but he's been doing better at cutting down on the strikeouts, which has allowed him to get to that power more often. And the fact he's improving and showing more signs of improving that hit tool has me just a slight bit more bullish. At number 32, we have Devin Taylor, who also just absolutely demolishes baseballs. What sets him apart is he actually has a good hit tool along with plus power, 55 grade on the hit and 60 on the power. Unfortunately, he is going to be a left fielder pretty much till the day he is out of the MLB. He is not great whenever it comes to the run. His arm isn't particularly fantastic either. Fielding isn't great. He's stuck to left field. He's not going to be a center fielder, not going to be a right fielder, not going to get that extra little value you get from there. He's going to be tucked away in left field because he absolutely mashes. At number 31, we have Slater De Brun, who fits that mold kind of like Slade Caldwell, kind of like a Corbin Carroll, where he is kind of small in stature at 5'10", 187 pounds. He's going to give you a center field body type with a plus hit tool, 55 grade. Has some power, but still working on getting to it at a 45 grade. Run absolutely off the charts at 65 grade. Arm 50, fielding 60. He's just going to give you a really plus center field who has a good hit tool, and if he can ever get to that power, it becomes immensely valuable. But for right now, I have him here at 31 until he can kind of add some muscle and learn how to hit for some power to the bull side. At number 30, we have the most prolific player in this entire class with Jack Bauer, who hit 103 off the mound as a 6'3 left-hander at 190 pounds. He doesn't necessarily do anything that wows you in his mechanics that really determines how he got to that speed. And he really sits about 95 whenever he's actually pitching in deep in the games. He has a plus slider, decent changeup. The control obviously is a little hit or miss sometimes, but he has been improving in that regard. What makes him so prolific is he's really smaller in stature, only 190 pounds, and there is a lot of concerns about that sudden uptick in velocity leading to injuries. But I just don't know that you can see that kind of velocity from a left-hander and not respect it in some regard. And I think he's definitely worth a flyer here at the end of like the first round into those compensatory picks. At number 29, we have Ethan Conrad, the outfielder from Wake Forest. Would have loved to see him play more this spring, but unfortunately he did have that surgery. He is pretty good at getting the bat to the ball. He has an uncanny ability to get the bat to the ball. He kind of uses it too much and can sometimes get really aggressive around the zone, and it's kind of hampered his power to this point. He has pretty good exit velocities, but just doesn't necessarily utilize it in the best way. Doesn't pull the ball in the air the way you would love to see. Run grade is flashy at times as a plus ability. Arm, fielding, they aren't necessarily the best. He's a capable center fielder, but he's probably more likely going to be a right fielder as a long-term home for him. At number 28, we have Gavin Fiend, a third base prospect out of high school in California. He stands at 6'3", 200 pounds, and he's currently committed to Texas. The reason he is so highly regarded is his ability to pretty much hit anywhere he has gone. He does have a pretty unorthodox setup to getting to that hitting ability, but he hits. What can you say? His arm is pretty plus at third base, so he is pretty profiled well there. Some people believe he might have to switch to a corner outfield or first base at some point, but as of right now, he's definitely going to stick at third. At number 27, we have Gavin Killen, the second baseman slash shortstop out of Tennessee. Long term, he's probably going to be a second baseman just because that arm is kind of getting used to its max potential at shortstop. So second base is probably a better home for him, where he is a pretty solid defender. He has one of the best hit tools in this entire class, and he uses that, again, almost too much. He almost puts too many balls in plays to the point where he doesn't get much authority on them and will rarely take a walk, which does have its concerns. So you definitely love to see him kind of start to be a little bit more picky at the plate and use the ability that he has some power in his game. He definitely could learn from pulling the ball in the air, especially because he doesn't have a proven track record with that with wood bats. But he is just all around a pretty good second baseman, and if he can have that power come along, he becomes very intriguing. Number 26, I have Josh Hammond, who is a shortstop out of North Carolina, but moving forward, he will be at third baseman, and that's because he has an incredible arm that doesn't necessarily have the movability and fielding of a naturally born shortstop. Another part of his game that scouts absolutely love is his power. He is a bit thicker at 6'1", 210, and he absolutely uses that to leverage baseballs to pretty much all parts of the field with ease. His hit tool is also pretty decent at a 50 grade. He has an all-around, well-rounded game. Just a plus hitting third baseman that's going to have some pop. Never can go wrong with that, especially at number 26. At number 25, I have Max Bellew, the corner outfield prospect from the University of Texas. What makes him so special is the fact he has so much raw power that he can tap into. He has an advanced approach, willing to take a walk, and he has a pretty good hit tool for someone that mashes the way he does. To combine with that, he's also going to be a right fielder, not left field. He's going to be right to make use of that arm. 60 grade arm on him, does run and field okay. He's just going to be a plus hitting right fielder that's going to absolutely mash. At number 24, I have Shawn Gamble, who isn't necessarily the flashiest player in the world. He's a second base slash outfield prospect from Florida. He stands at 6'1", 188 pounds, committed to Vanderbilt. He doesn't necessarily do anything flash. He has a plus hit tool, plus run grade, plus arm, okay fielding, okay pop. Nothing is like outstanding, but he just does everything at a very solid level. And if he can ever tap into that power as a plus running center fielder, plus fielding, he's going to be incredibly valuable in that role. It's just a matter if he can actually get to that pop he has shown in glimpses. At number 23, we have Luke Stevenson, the catcher from the University of North Carolina. He had a very interesting season as a catcher because he really struggled making contact with the baseball, only had a 251 batting average and a 24% strikeout rate. That is unacceptable for somebody at this kind of stature of the game, but he also demolishes baseballs whenever he runs into it. 19 homers last season from the catching spot is incredible. And combined with that, he is a really plus catcher, has really cleaned up his game there. Has a 60 grade arm, is really accurate with that as well, and is a 55 grade fielder. He also has cleaned up his receiving. He's just all around a plus catcher who has pop. I think that is immensely valuable, especially if that hit tool can ever come around. I think he has a chance to be immensely valuable as a catcher. Another very weird quandary in this class is Jace Lavallet, who again struggles with the hit tool, only had a 258 average, 25% strikeout rate in college is just unacceptable. Obviously in the pros it's a different game. In college you have to be hitting the baseball consistently, and he's just not doing that. But whenever he runs into it, demolishes baseball. 65 grade power, also can play a little bit of center. You probably want him in the corner, but he can be a makeshift center fielder for sure. Corner outfield is probably going to be his home long term. He's just a really, really interesting guy, especially considering where he started the year, where he ended the year. It just was a very, very interesting season. I think it's a pretty fitting place to have him at 22 because there will be people that still value his upside, but his low lights are down there. Player who consistently gets to the baseball more is Brendan Summerhill. an outfield prospect from the University of Arizona. He did mostly play in the corners, but can definitely play in center field as well with his plus run grades, has a plus hit tool as well. And if he can play in center, it wouldn't put as much pressure on his power to come along. It did show more in his last year at Arizona, but it definitely has more to tap into moving forward. At number 20, we have another player who has a lot of question marks surrounding him, but has been launching himself up draft boards this season, mostly behind his incredible fastball and curveball combination. And this is going to be Gage Wood, the right-hander from Arkansas. He stands at just 6 foot tall, 205 pounds, so he definitely is putting a lot of stress on that body, and that has continued to follow him with injuries, and that is probably the biggest question mark surrounding him. It slowed his development on his off-speed offerings and his slider and changeup. He has pretty good control of his four-seam and curveball, but you need to see that slider and changeup come along more to be a front-of-the-line starter type, and he definitely has his injury histories that team will shut off him from their draft boards entirely from. At number 19, we have one of the most physically gifted players in this entire class. It is Cruz Schoolcraft, a 6'8", 229-pound 18-year-old out of high school out of Oregon. He is just a physical specimen. Throws 97 at 18 years old. It does go a little bit straight and has lack of spin, but if that's your main takeaway, you are nitpicking to say the least. Has an incredible slider, has a good changeup, control is pretty good, especially considering his size and long limbs. He just does everything really well for somebody his age, and I definitely expect somebody to be really excited to get him on draft day. At number 18, we have Cunningham, the shortstop / second base prospect out of Texas. He also is committed to the University of Texas. He stands at 5'10", 182 pounds, is 19 years old, which is a little bit old for high schoolers on draft day. But what he does incredibly well is he has a good hit tool, standing at a 60 grade. He rarely swings and misses. He's starting to lean more into power despite his small stature. Has a good run grade, good arm. Fielding is pretty decent as well. Overall, it's a 55 grade player. He should be good enough to make do at shortstop, but he's probably going to be a second baseman long term. At number 17, I had Steele Hall, the shortstop prospect out of high school in Alabama. Stands at 6 feet tall, 180 pounds, committed to the University of Tennessee. He is much better as a hit over power sort of player, but he definitely tried to sell out more last year in the power department. What he does well is he has top of the line speed, 70 grade, has incredible run times, the arm is solid, fielding is incredibly good. He is just a really good top of the scale defensive player with a good hit tool and is pretty young at just 17 years old. At number 16, we have Daniel Pierce, another high school shortstop out of Georgia. This one stands at 6 foot tall, 185 pounds at 18 years old. Again, incredibly gifted defensively, 60 grade run, 55 arm, 55 fielding, 55 overall. He has one of the best all-around defensive games in the high school ranks. Also is incredibly good at getting the bat to the baseball with a 55 grade, 45 power grade. He should be able to develop more muscle and be able to put some more over the fence. But right now at a 45 grade, and definitely a player to look out for on draft day. At number 15, we have another defensively gifted shortstop in Marique Houston, who is one of the best, if not the best defensive shortstop, if not for Billy Carlson in this class. He has a pretty decent hit grade too at 50. Power is coming along. He should get around 12 to 15 bombs as he grows more and continues to develop his approach longer into his career. He is just a pretty well-rounded shortstop who played in the SEC. And you know those SEC shortstops, especially from Wake Forest, are going to get a bump on draft day. At number 14, we have Xavier Naens, who is probably one of my biggest discrepancies between MLB Pipeline, just because I'm a big fan of what he can do at the plate. Hit grade at 50, which honestly might be a little high because he does have quite a bit of swing and miss to his game. Power at 65, some of the best raw power in this entire class. Not much of a runner, but he's at third base for a reason. He has a good arm. Decent fielder. He's going to definitely stick at third base, and if he can get to the power that he has in this class, I really don't think there's that much that separates him from Ethan Holiday. I know that's a big statement to make, but other than the hit tool, he's really not that far off because Ethan Holiday's probably a third baseman as well. Plus power, he's just pretty close, and I think he's like a budget version here at number 14. At number 13, we have Wuiwu Aloy, another player who I'm very bullish on here moving him up quite a bit compared to others in the draft. I have him at 13 because I love the fact that he's a power hitting shortstop who's actually going to stick at shortstop and not just be a complete liability. He is a shortstop through and through. He can get to every baseball. The running isn't the greatest, but he plays with some good natural instincts. He has the arm to make all the throws. Fielding is also really great. He definitely can make the move to second base or third base, but if he can stick it short, he has the power, has the contact ability to be a plus shortstop and plus defensively. I definitely think he is really a solid player that needs to be looked at more. At number 12, I have Tyler Bremner, who is pretty much demolished. At number 12, I have Tyler Bremner, who's one of the probably... At number 12, I have Tyler Bremner, the right-handed pitcher out of UC Santa Barbara, sitting at 6'2", 190 pounds. He has the elite combination of a double plus fastball, double plus changeup, and really good control. His slider definitely needs some work, but you can definitely find a pitching guru to give him a good slider. Overall, he's a really good prospect. He touches 98 off the mound. Changeup could definitely be a 70 grade just because of how good it is. His fastball misses bats at a 46% clip. Like, there's just not much in terms of stuff question marks. His control is really good. The only question mark could be around his durability and his slider, but if you're really hinging on some stuff, if that's your concern, I think you get that fastball, you get that changeup, and you get that sort of control. That is absolutely somebody who deserves to be up on leaderboards. Number 11, I have Ike Irish, who turned himself into arguably the best hitting prospect in this class. He absolutely went on a tear in his last year at Auburn. He did have to play corner outfield after breaking a bone to limit his catching ability, and there were some question marks about his catching even before that, and he definitely could just make the full-time switch to the outfield, focus on that, and just let his hitting ability come naturally, because he is just demolishing baseballs. 60 grade hit, 55 grade power, also has a plus arm, so right field makes sense for him. There's just a lot to love here with Irish. I do hold the lack of position against him a little bit. That keeps him out of the top 10, but he absolutely demolishes baseballs, and whoever gets him is going to be very happy. I have him here at 11. At number 10, we have Kaisen Witherspoon, who is just one of the most amazing. At number 10, we have Kaisen Witherspoon, who's one of the most electric pitchers to watch in this year's class. Has a 65 grade fastball that gets up to 99. His slider can get up to 91 and is absolutely filthy with a 60 grade. Curveball is also really good. Cutter's incredible. Changeup's not great, but he's still trying to, flash that pitch here and there. Control is overall decent, especially this year with his improved mechanics. Overall, he is just a front of the line potential starter if he can continue to develop. Just 20 years old and will be for a good part of this season. He's just a really exciting prospect and has just been dominating everybody. Number 9, I have Jojo Parker, the shortstop prospect who is a high schooler out of Mississippi. He is one of the more incredibly gifted high school offensive talents we have. 60 grade hit tool, 55 grade power. His defense is a little fringy at shortstop. He'll likely have to make the move to third base or second later on in his career. He'll get the chance to play short, absolutely deserves it, especially with how much value he would have with his offensive prowess. But defensively, maybe not necessarily as advanced as some of the guys further up this list. Before we can talk about that, we have Liam Doyle here at number 8, who is one of the most electric pitchers to watch in all of college baseball this season. Fastball off the charts, 75 grade, and it was so hard to hit for anybody. I don't know that anybody hit it. It felt like this whole year. It peaks at 100 miles an hour. He did get a little reliant on it too much, almost to the point where you don't know how good his off-speed stuff is. His slider, cutter, splitter, they all grade out well, but it really differs based off who you talk to. Control was kind of okay. Overall, he's just a really exciting prospect, but there is a lot of variability with where he will land as a player, just because, with that much reliant on fastball ability and it just being kind of hit or miss on the secondary stuff, it could definitely be a big swing and miss sort of prospect here at number 8. At number 7, I have Eli Willett, who is another one of these exciting high school prospects. There is no question he's going to stick at shortstop, incredibly good and gifted at shortstop defensively. The hit tool is his calling card on the offensive side, 60 grade there. Power has a ways to come along. He's only at a 45 grade. Don't know how much he'll be able to get into just standing at 6'1", He should be able, once he puts on some weight, maybe about 15 homers per year, but really not the upside offensively that you saw from like a Jojo Parker, but defensively, sticking it short is absolutely immensely valuable. However, I would say Billy Carlson is just a tad bit better than him at shortstop. He is just the probably best shortstop defensively in this class as a high schooler. Plus, there is more projectability with his swing. Now, he's going to have to do a pretty decent overhaul to get more consistent contact, but there is more power in his swing, more power to dive into with him. And I think that's why I put him just a step above Eli Willett here at number 6. At number 5, I have Ava Arquette, the top college bat in this class. It's because he absolutely demolishes baseballs, 55 grade power, 50 grade hitting. He's just going to demolish everything. He's going to get around 20 to 25 homers once he becomes a big leaguer and gets into his strength a little bit more. He should be able to stick at shortstop as well with his plus arm and decent fielding. He is definitely a really exciting prospect, and somebody who's looking to get this guy to the majors relatively soon is going to be very happy on draft day. At number 4, I have Jamie Arnold, who has a really high floor as a prospect in my opinion. Good fastball slider combination with decent control. Changeup is flashing as well. He just has a really good solid floor from the left-handed side. Has a little bit of a quirky delivery, but fills up the strike zone, limits damage, and keeps his stuff deep into outings. He just does a lot of things really well. I don't know that he's necessarily like an elite prospect in a lot of ways, but I think he just does a lot of things well. He's going to be a solid number 2, 3 starter in my opinion, and he will just be a really good pitcher for a long time. At number 3, I have Cade Anderson, who has been picking up a lot of steam throughout the draft process and especially through his College World Series run, and he deservingly so got it. 60 grade fastball, 55 grade curveball, 55 slider, 60 grade changeup, 55 control, overall 60. He led the NCAA in strikeouts and innings, finished 3rd in victories. He was just a really good pitcher throughout the entire year. Fills up the strike zone, touched 97 with the fastball. Plus, there's more projectability with him. He's only 179 pounds at 6'2", so you definitely could see some more muscle being put on and maybe an uptick in velocity. He definitely has more to uncover, and he's already starting at a really high point. He has a really high floor, and I think there's more to come with Cade Anderson. At number 2, we have Seth Hernandez, who I think if you take positional value out of this, has the highest potential out of anybody. Now, putting positional value into it, right-handed pitchers aren't ever going to go right 1, 2, whatever, as a high schooler, just because there is so much risk involved, and realistically, there's a lot of good right-handed pitching that ends up being elite. Right-handed pitchers don't tend to go that high, but Seth Hernandez absolutely has some crazy potential. 70 grade fastball that's already touched up 97, 98, curveball at 60, 55 grade slider, 60 grade changeup, 55 control on that, and overall a 60 grade. He has a lot of projectability at 6'4", 190 pounds. His curveball already has over 3,000 RPMs. He's just like almost a perfect prospect. Like, I don't know what more you could want from the guy. He has just been incredible throughout his entire high school career, and he has incredible stuff and has tuned up a lot of the aspects of his game. I have nothing but great things to say about Seth Hernandez. But at number 1, you know who it is. I went with Ethan Holiday. He is just probably going to be the de facto number 1 overall pick. I don't think he's a lock by any means, but I think if you're going for upside combined with positional value, I think Ethan Holiday is the pick and will be my number 1 overall draft ranking. He is a decent hit tool at 50 grade. It didn't necessarily show through in his last season of work in high school. The 65 grade power should allow him to get to around a 35 homer mark as a pro. Has a decent walk rate as well. He doesn't necessarily run the best, so he's probably not going to stick at shortstop. The arm is incredible, so probably slide him over to third base. Fielding, it's okay. He'll probably be a third baseman. Maybe some corner outfield talk has slipped in there, but I think third base will be a good candidate for him. He moves pretty well. Like, he just does a lot of things good on a baseball field. Obviously, we know the lineage, but he is creating his own path, and he is definitely deserving of the number 1 slot.